Welcome to the Board of Adjustment. I called to order the Board of Adjustment meeting of November 1st, 2018, and I want to welcome everyone. And you all probably have an agenda that has all the information on it about talking and different kinds of things. But I just want to remind everybody to take your devices and put them on airplane mode or vibrate or something so they won't go off and disrupt. We have a system where you sign in and you, if you're going to speak, and when you are called, your case is called, you approach the podium and you give your name and address. And if they're in the beginning, we would like it to be succinct and around 5 minutes in your presentation. The board members, we will all have questions for you. You will be able to respond to those, and if any other people wish to talk, they need to have signed up for that particular item and call it to our attention. They will be allowed to speak. And I also have what is called a allergy going into some kind of congestion. So if I start coughing a lot, please bear with me, and I apologize. We have on the first item is to receive the minutes of the October 4th, 2018 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move to receive the minutes. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. The minutes are received. We have a request by the staff or applicants. Can you announce what items are deferred, and then I believe there's one that's withdrawn.
We have two that are being deferred. They're both from the same applicant. It's item 11 and item 12, case number 14530 and 14531, to defer to the December 6th meeting.
Do I have a motion for that deferral?
I move to approve the deferral.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Let's all vote. It's deferred to December 6th on items 14530 and 14531. On the item 4D13 is withdrawn. Is that correct?
Yes, item 13, case number 14533, is being withdrawn.
Okay. Items requiring separate vote. The first item on the agenda is case number 14514. Will the clerk please announce?
So item number 1, case number 14514, request for a variance to permit an electrified fence and a single strand wire fence over 10 feet in height. Variance to the maximum front yard fence height, front yard fencing material, side and rear yard fence height, and fencing material in the DBD Downtown Business District located at 1033 South Walker Avenue.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Michael Pate. I'm with the Electric Guard Dog, Columbia, South Carolina. I think we met before. I'm going to give you a brief overview again just to understand what we're doing here. We're installing an electric security fence, battery-powered, inside the existing fence lines. There's already an 8-foot fence all the way up that actually is solid. It's a solid steel fence. It's been up for many, many years in this particular, on this particular piece of property. We basically take that 12-volt battery we power this thing with, and we amplify it to 7,000 volts over 1.3 seconds. Once that amplification is finished, that amplifier mechanically cannot hold any more energy, and it releases down the interior fence line, and in 3/10,000ths of a second we do a quick perimeter check back to an alarm panel. That alarm panel is looking for a nice clean return of 2,000 volts per pulse. After 5 negative pulses simultaneously or consecutively, it'll set the alarm off. Audibly on the site, silently back in Columbia, South Carolina, and I go through a call list. So if Mr. Wilson's number 1 on my call list, I'll call him at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell him where the break is. We also incorporate cameras with these devices so he can stay at home on his Wi-Fi and look at that particular fence line. Now, I think the last time I was here you asked me for the safety documents and the testing documents. We provided all those to the city, and I was assured that you had all been distributed those documents so you could see the safety documents and how we test this and manufactures these particular types of products. The other thing we talked about was the fencing that's there now and the new interstate that's there that basically creates not only one but two alleys. There's one alley down the side right here. This is the eastern side between the bridge and the building itself. And there's another one in the back where there it is right there, where on the far right-hand side of this particular photograph is where the DOT fence is up, creates an alley between that and the existing fence line, and that's where all the homeless folks have been parking and camping out and breaking in the back over there, sleeping in the vehicles and stealing from the vehicles and basically vandalizing the property. You also asked us to go over there and consult with the church. We did consult with the church. I think all that was in the letter that was sent to you by the property owner. Church is fine with us being there. The church actually has barbed wire around their property because they get broken into occasionally also. Also asked us to go check with the property owner next door, which is on the west side. They were fine with us there and appreciate us going over there and checking on that property because right now it's unoccupied. So we keep a good eye on that property. It also has a small alley between our fence and their fence there. It's probably about 2 or 3 feet wide. It'll be on the left of this, actually, where you can't see it on this particular photograph. But there's a small alley there where people have also been walking down there. So it's a little piece of property that, for some reason, has a couple of alleys around it, and it's basically where all the homeless folks and the vagrants have been in there and breaking into the property. I believe I covered everything you asked me to cover last time I was here that I didn't have the answers to. I apologize for that. And we got the letter to you. So with that said, I would appreciate a vote in the positive to allow us to install this electric security fence. And if you have any questions at all, I'd be glad to answer them.
I just had a couple questions. You have to be certified in order to make that installation under OSHA, is that correct? Or you have to be a certain kind of installer to be able to do that?
Well, it's not the installation, it's the manufacturer of the electrical components themselves and how they're cobbled together. So OSHA basically has 14 nationally recognized testing laboratories that basically make sure that we adhere to the standards in our our manufacturing process. We actually went through a review last month and got approval again to manufacture under the IEC standard 60335-2-76, which is the only standard in the world for electric security fences, which we've been basically testing to here for the last 8 to 10 years.
Now, the Downtown Business reviewed this and made a recommendation that this be approved, subject to you removing the barbed wire. Have you agreed to do that?
Yes, ma'am, we have agreed to move the barbed wire.
And also with regards to signage, you noted that you will have signage in 2 languages, English and Spanish. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's standard operating procedure, and all of our signs are in a minimum of 2 languages. If you have other languages you'd like us to put on there, we're fine with that. I think we've got 36 languages now we operate on in the United States of America.
But it is required to have that external fencing to protect. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am, and the standard also requires that we have a minimum 6-foot first fence or perimeter fence up before we can even install behind it. So there already is one up, and we're going to install behind that one. So someone actually has to be going through the perimeter fence before they can even touch the electric fence. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions, board members?
Is there anyone here to speak against this? If not, I would support the application and would move to do so.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Let's all cast our votes. The application, the permit is approved.
Item number 2, case number 14536, request for a variance to permit an accessory sign on street right-of-way to DTD1 Downtown Transitional Limited District, located at 800 Northwest 9th Street.
Hi, my name is Jim Gleason, G&S Sign Services, 1019 East Grand Boulevard, Oklahoma City, representing SSM Healthcare. Last time we did a continuance, we didn't have quite enough information for the board to understand our site issues. Now, I did send a PDF. Did that make your folder? Were you able to see that?
It didn't get into the folder, but I emailed it to all.
Okay,
the
you
board
guys have
members.
got that?
Yes.
I'd like to go over that. Do what? Okay, I got you. So it looks like, yeah, you've got the same thing I'm looking at. What we're showing there is the top view of that. We're showing the site, the area where you can see the sign. The top view is what we'd like, the variance is going to help create. The bottom view is showing per code, if we place the sign per code, the little bit of viewing distance that we would have to be able to identify the building. Most of the people are going to be coming in off of Chartel. They're going to be coming from the north, the south, and the east. So per code, we're not going to really be able to mark that entrance very well. So what we're showing through this packet is we're showing the top view, and then we go to an aerial where we can see the streets in a photograph, and then we're also showing you the view from Chartel from photo number 1 and photo number 2. Basically showing that once we get to Chartel, once the vehicles start to turn down that side street, they have to come all the way down 9th Street before they can see where to enter. So this is what we're asking for as a minimum. I could actually ask for another sign over on Chartel, which would be to the east of the property, but we feel like this is a minimum that we would need if we could just encroach out into the right-of-way just slightly, just where we can see that pedestrian and the vehicles can see from that intersection.
The question was asked earlier, and I think you have another diagram in your exhibit packet. Is that called option 1 diagram that shows the signage?
Do what?
Option 1, tier 1, is that the one that you submitted for your signage? Shows where somebody would be walking on a sidewalk, is that correct?
In option 1?
Well, it's one of your exhibits. It's after your building design at the very end, or am I looking?
Okay, yeah, that would be the sign. Yeah. Yes.
The question was asked whether it would be obstruction to anybody walking or anyone carrying with a carriage or walking with children or anything. That would be easily viewed.
I mean,
it's going to easy access.
Yeah, it's going to set behind the sidewalk, so it's not going to be in front of the sidewalks, or there's not going to be any. I mean, we are concerned with pedestrians, but we're also concerned with the vehicles also. But it's not going to block any vehicles pulling in. As far as pedestrian blocking their view, either we move it out past out into the right-of-way or behind the property line. Either way, it would have to sit beside that sidewalk. If we go behind the right-of-way, we're going to have to take up a parking space, and then we're going to have a lot of other code issues with that also.
Any questions, board members? Anybody here to speak on the matter?
No, we appreciate sending different images. It gives a better idea of how the sign would look and where it will be placed.
So I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve case number 14536 for the reasons that it meets the statutory requirements for variance.
Was it seconded?
Second.
Okay, thank you. A motion and a second to approve. All cast your votes, please. The application passed.
Item number 3, case number 14537, request for a variance to the 20-foot front yard building setback in the PUD 485 district located at 12816 Ponderosa Boulevard.
I'm David Peck, and I'm the builder at 12816 Ponderosa. So basically, what I'm looking for here is just the variance. When they set up the slab and the forms, the the building line had some curvature that was, because of the street in front of the property, the street was curved, the building line was slightly curved, and, the home was constructed just under 11 inches on the front building line. And so basically what they did is they, pulled a string line on the front, and the house actually sits beyond that building line if it were a straight building line. So it wasn't considered that, the building line had some curvature to it. And so basically all they need is a variance to be able to finalize their financing, and then, they're able to, stay in the home. And this was basically the minimum avenue for us to take in order to, finalize the whole process.
So as I read, it's 11 inches of the portion of the garage was built over the line, is that correct?
Exact, just under 11 inches, and again, the very furthest point on the building line just, makes it to where the house just barely sits over that building line. And, so that was not properly accounted for, but it's, it's not visible from the street. The street is actually curved there, and so it, there's no notable difference on that.
Board members, any questions?
I'm concerned that we seem to get these requests repeatedly about, we didn't do our survey, we didn't do it correctly according to the city ordinances, and I'm just concerned about that.
I know I've expressed that view in the past and denied applications. Those were requesting a lot bigger variance than this. But again, I think to Mr. Donaldson's point, a little bit of diligence on the front end, a little bit more diligence on the front end can prevent coming before this board. And I know we're hesitant to exert any corrective power on things that we think could have been solved on the front end. What makes this a bit unique, I think, is the curvature here. That provides a little bit more of an allowance in my mind. It's also a pretty small variance, and it also seems to be in line with the other houses here. So all those tend to weigh in favor of your application. But I certainly share your concerns.
As the only surveyor up here, I may understand this a little better than most. Mistakes happen. And with this curve here, it's actually almost exactly what it should be off if they totally ignored the curve. So don't ignore the curves. They are important, no matter how small or big they are. But, less than a foot and not noticeable. I can't see making somebody tear down their house and rebuilding it for that.
I agree with that. The 11 inches, we've seen, ones I disagree with especially is when it's is very large in size and it's a straight track or whatever. We've seen those pie-shaped cul-de-sacs that nobody seems to know how to design to build a building in a I've told people if you buy one and something shaped like a pie, be careful, your house may not be straight on lines. But this I agree with on the condition of the curving of the thing and the measurement. I think that this one is, as staff noted, was insignificant. So I agree with you because you all have heard me before talk about this. In fact, there was one where there was a house built and I didn't want it to be approved. That was one of my first meetings. So, but it got approved. But anyway, so I can't do the motion, but I certainly favor the variance. Motions? Are there comments or anybody to be heard? Or any responses, anything?
I'll make the motion to approve on the premise that it meets the statutory requirements.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the variance. Cast your votes, please. The motion has been, is that for our, it's not. The motion to grant the variances and the variance have been granted.
We have item number 4, case number 14538, request for a variance to the 25-foot side yard setback in the RA single-family 1-acre rural residential district located at 7100 Northeast 116th Street.
Yes, my name is Derek Patterson. I'm representing Jeff Shipman on a setback on a pool house. We're trying to do it, all the things right up front so we don't have this happen. We've got a side, I came in here in January and asked for a backyard setback, and we got denied, but now we're asking for a side yard setback. I've got the addition that did not want us to do the backyard setback to agree to this. I've got the neighbors next door, and I got the homeowners association of this HOA approved. They said they'd go with what your request is. So, and I also want to note that the structure itself is just a porch, covered porch that's going to be over the setback line.
Could you please go over, with the initial mistake that no one knew, the pool, when it was originally built in 2010, it encroached 17 feet into the 25-foot side building setback. Is that correct? So then you found out when you did the application to add on, or?
No, the pool was already there. I have nothing to do with the pool. It was there when the house was purchased.
Okay, but it was determined later that it didn't meet the setback requirements.
Well, John asked me to get the measurement off of it, and I went
John.
over and got the measurement and showed it was 13 feet off the fence line. The pool was in the wrong spot, but
It was determined when I was reviewing this that the pool was in the setback. So I pulled the plans, well, I pulled the permit and the inspections. There was no plans, but it was inspected and approved. But it was already there, and it's been that way for 10 years. So for this case, I went ahead and added the pool into the setback.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, I mean, it's in the setback, so I went ahead and added it in there.
So what are the improvements? What are the sizes, and how much overall in the setback are those improvements, the new improvements?
The improvements we're trying to do is going to be, we're going to be 10 foot into the setback. It's a 25-foot setback, so we're asking for 10 more feet.
But you're asking for both since the original one was not granted. Is that correct, John?
Since the pool was already there,
Yeah,
we need to
Okay.
clear up all of it. I will add, if this was served by city water, it would be a 10-foot setback instead of a 25. And that's mainly because of fire. So I do see what he's saying about the, it's a cover, it's not a building, so it doesn't have a building wall there. But the main reason for the 25 is for the fire. If it had water, then it would be 10.
Okay, board members, any questions?
I was just looking at the plan. The way the plan's drawn, it shows it just barely into that area. Does it go
Well,
farther than that, or is it just not
The
showing the
architect
overhang?
actually drew it wrong. He did it with a 10-foot setback.
Right.
And I noticed that and came to John and them and asked
Okay,
them,
all right.
I think this is a mistake.
I got you. Okay, it's marked, I see it now. I was thinking that was meaning, that's what, okay, yeah.
I don't think we don't have any protests or anything. Anybody here to speak on the matter? We don't have anything from the neighborhood association or anything, do we, John?
Actually,
No, we just have the neighborhood behind was
behind it, yes.
Okay.
for it. They were against it the time before when it was a rear yard setback. They had an issue with that. This
So,
one here, they have no objection.
so we have nobody to speak against the matter and no written objections, is that correct, protests?
That's correct.
Do I hear a motion?
Well,
Or any other comments?
yeah, I'd kind of like to better appreciate what we're actually approving or denying here. And I think you've represented to us that it's only the covered patio and not the structure.
Right,
correct?
the structure is actually past the original setback.
And then how much of the, I'm sorry, so the structure encroaches on the setback. Is that what you're saying? And not just the covered portion, but the actual structure does?
No, the structure does not.
Okay, that's-
But that's tied into the
Right.
structure, so it's all considered as one.
Right.
So it makes the whole thing over.
Yeah.
But the actual building itself, besides the the side porch, is actually out of the setback.
Okay. I mean, that was my first concern was fire here, and obviously that's got more implications if there's a structure there, I would think, a little bit more than if it's just a covered patio. But my primary concern is that we would just be kind of exacerbating an existing problem. So this should have never existed here in the first place, and then we grant this variance for the structure for something that we would have never approved in the first place. And so that's kind of my struggle with this, and it might just be the case that there just can't be a structure there. I don't know, but those are my initial thoughts.
I had that initial thought as well. But there are no lines or anything underneath, right? Nothing
No, there's no utilities or
interfering.
anything.
Can it be, I mean, just as a question, can it be moved back so at least it doesn't come within, at all within the 20, so it at least comes within the footage without requesting that part, but only blessing the pool?
It cannot, not the way it's designed.
Is it built already, or is it?
No, it's not built.
Can it be redesigned?
And just not have the covered patio that would encroach on the setback. And then you just
I guess it could, but it pushes it further to the west, and the land is not really desirable. We're trying to keep it close to the pool as we can, since it is a pool house.
We're having a little bit of problems with this today. I'm just, because it is so substantial, before your time, it's so substantial, looking at whether we want to exacerbate it by adding, even if it is a 10-foot. But I don't know. What do the board members think?
I don't think that I can support it.
I'm with you there, although to clean up the property records, I'd love to approve, or I could support approving a variance for the pool, and at least you'd have that part cleaned up.
I would approve that.
So,
Same here, I'll be with the approving the pool.
Just kind of technically and procedurally, John, if it's not specifically requested in the application, can we still grant the application or the variance for the pool?
It wasn't in the application. I added it into the staff report to clean this up, at least for that portion of it.
Should they try to get a variance on it regardless? I mean, if we can do that or not?
I would think if everybody's supportive of it, to vary it, see what the city attorney
The
says.
house?
Yeah, so if the board wanted to grant the application for the variance to encroach on the side yard setback as it relates specifically to the pool, that would be fine. Or if the board wanted to do both, they could, the motion would need to be specific either way.
I would move to do the variance as to the pool and not the entire application.
now, I'd like to point out, I've got a building permit on this that the city made a mistake on, that I could have gone forward on this, but I came in here to try to do this correctly.
That is correct. He came to my office with a permit, and I had to go back and talk to the plans examiner to straighten that out.
Wasn't it the case, though, that the permit was granted based on an oversight initially?
We're talking two different things here. The first thing was the oversight on the pool 10 years ago. What he's talking about now happened just in the last month or so on the building. It was accidentally given a permit, and I notified him that, no, we need to, and he was, and he
And
wanted,
I wanted to come
he
clear
wanted
this
to
up
do
and
it.
make it correct. So, and
Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate that, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's not correct.
John, was that permit for including that backyard setback being off, or?
That permit was for what he's asking for here.
For this one?
It was a new person that's in plan review that didn't read the code correctly. And I don't know what happened on the pool 10 years ago. I couldn't say on that one.
I'll second Mr. Donaldson's motion.
We have a motion? Your motion, and then you second it. So we have a motion and a second with respect only to the variance on the 25-foot yard setback as it pertains to the pool,
I didn't file for the pool.
but not as to the other structure that
We
you
can-
proposed.
I mean, we can not approve that variance.
We could separate that motion into split. Could we split that?
Right, because it's going to be dependent on the site plan. So I think if we said specifically for the pool, then we could call that out for the variance and not for the additional structures.
Now, why is everybody denying this structure when I've got approval from the neighbors, the neighborhood association? I've got a permit. What's the hang up here?
I think I've expressed my hesitation, and Mr. Donaldson has as well. I mean, the pool should have never been built in the first place in its current position. And by granting an application for a variance on the structure, we'd be amplifying an already existing something that's not within the code, something that's not compliant with the code. And I don't think that the elements for a variance here have been met. There's not a hardship. I don't think this is the least, the minimum necessary to alleviate this hardship that hasn't been established. I mean, for all of those reasons, I just can't get behind this application.
I will agree with him. There might be a solution or looking into building something a little bit different that you wouldn't need a variance for. And we're just duplicating the problems or the errors when it comes to changing the setbacks.
We're ready to vote. I will make the comment before we actually cast. It appears that from the way you designed it, if the cover were taken off of your cabana design or whatever, that it wouldn't be within the...
So I can have a slab there?
Yes.
I can?
You said that was not in the
The
set.
covered patio.
Technically, I mean, that would be
Okay.
the same.
Never mind.
The
Okay,
slab.
are we ready to cast our votes? Motion to approve with respect to, as it applies to the pool. Second, and here we go. It was approved for the pool. Wasn't approved as to your design, as to your additions.
Okay.
I think there should also be
Yeah, we need a separate, I'm sorry.
resolve
We need
the
a separate
remainder of the
motion
application.
on the add-on.
Now, I feel like I came down here and did it right. I could have pulled my application.
I agree with you. I think that you had the best intentions. Personally, I feel like I have very limited power, and if certain things aren't met, I can't exert any power to grant a variance, and that's all that it is. I certainly appreciate you trying to do the right thing here, but I mean that factors into the calculus, but it doesn't meet the elements that I think I need to have met in order to grant a variance.
We could give you since you're representing the owner, right?
Correct.
You could ask for a continuance to further, I'm just talking to the board, if you would like, instead of voting today on that item B, we could move that or continue that to the next board meeting, and then you would have an opportunity to meet with the owners. And what do you all think, board members?
I think that would be a great idea for you to talk to the city staff and do things. You know, we have the city ordinances set up what we are supposed to follow.
Right.
And speaking only for me, but having sat here with the rest of these people, we'd like to grant every variance that comes in here. But that's not what our responsibility is. You know, that's not what our responsibility is. And so we're not trying to be punitive. We're trying to follow what
The rules.
Yeah.
And so am I, and that's why I'm here.
And so, you know, I think that the chairman had a very good idea. Maybe we continue the issue as to the structure, and you can talk with city staff and figure out a way to finagle around it that gets closer to what are the statutory requirements.
I think it's possible to potentially redesign this to encroach less, possibly to not encroach at all. And that's just one of the elements that I think we have to meet, is that after all the diligence that you've done, the solution you've come to is the minimum necessary. And so if there is a way, if you think that there's a way that you could either have a smaller variance or no variance at all, I'm happy to move for a continuance. My understanding was that you didn't think that this could be redesigned. And so that's why I moved.
Well, we redesigned it twice. We went back the first time and it was denied, and so then we moved it to the side. And if we want to keep it by the pool, we kind of have to put it where it is. If not, it's way off to the side just because of the lay of the land.
Sure, yeah. The location I understand, but if the size, it could be a little small, I don't know. I mean, if it's not possible, I don't think the board is comfortable approving it. If you think it is possible to kind of redesign it in some way that might satisfy the board, I'm happy to move for a continuance.
We can look at it, yeah.
When's the next meeting?
December 6th.
Is a month and a couple days enough time?
Yeah.
I'd move to, do you have something to say? Move to continue this application for the variance to the structure to the December 6th meeting.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to continue the item to the December 6th meeting. Cast your votes. The item is continued. That will give you an opportunity to meet with staff and the owners and everything. Thank you very much.
Item number 5, case number 14539, request for a variance to the minimum 5-acre lot size in the AA Agricultural District located at 6620 North Sooner Road.
Hello. My name is Kima Dean, and I am trying to get this piece of property off of 6620.
Speaking up a little bit, hold
Sorry.
your name and address and speaking up a little bit, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm here to see if I can go from AA to, from agricultural property to residential property so that I can, residential agricultural property so that I can put a house on. I don't have quite 5 acres. I have 2.72 acres.
That's not what we're here for today. What are we here for? We're here for...
This is because the agricultural zoning district requires 5 acres, and the applicant only has right at 2 acres. So it's a variance to the
So I'm requesting a
size.
variance to...
Variance, you're not here to change the zoning.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, I thought you were talking about changing the
Sorry.
Residential's allowed in AA.
Yeah. Well, this would be allowed if it was zoned R1?
Yes.
Or-
Yes, or RA.
And I'm just wanting to see if I'm able to get this variance so that I could be able, it would create a hardship if I wasn't able to get this variance so that I could put a home on there.
Is that going to be your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have a current residence somewhere else, though, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are your basis for getting the variance for the mobile home? Because I know
It's not for a mobile home. It's an actual house. It'll be an actual house. It's not a mobile home. It'll
You're
be a
going to
brick-
do an actual house?
Yes, ma'am. I have a home on Harrison Properties. I've moved. It came from Bethany. I want to just see if I can. I mean, I explained it when I went in and put in for my application. But I'm trying to get a variance so that I can move a home on this property.
The variance wouldn't matter whether it was a house or a mobile home. Either one would need 5 acres, and she only has 2.
Either one would require the 5 acres, whether it's a home or otherwise? Okay.
It seems like to me this should be a zoning application.
Yeah, that was my thought as well, which is kind of how you introduced the application. So maybe you're
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sorry, I
same-
might have misplaced that, but when I went up to planning the development apartment, I explained to them what I was wanting to do and what I need to do, and then they informed me that this is what I need
Okay,
to do.
I understand. Yeah, this is a massive variance.
But
And
I do have some places here where there is homes north of that property that I am speaking of. There's homes that's individual, that's acre, they're not even at a full acre. And then across the street as well on Sooner Road, there's properties there that has less than 2 acres, not even a full acre. And they have houses on those
I
properties.
understand. Each application stands on its own, and I don't know if they all have variances or if they're non-conforming or kind of what went on with those houses. You know, it kind of cuts both ways, because if everything in that area is less than 5 acres, you know, that bids well in your favor. At the same time, it kind of approaches on us becoming the planning commission and rezoning this entire area. And I don't know if I'm.
Well, I would
comfortable
want a
with that.
variance so that I can get it on. You don't have to rezone it, but, I mean, if it's required. I mean, I'm not for sure what you're saying, because just a while ago you said that I had to.
John, can you discuss the property that's next door or adjacent to the property across the street from the property that, and how it is currently zoned?
Properties back during this time period were brought in the early 60s. They were brought in as agricultural. A lot of these properties were annexed in less than 5 acres. She did not have she was unable to find a deed prior to 1977, which is when our subdivision regulations came into effect, so that we could do deed approval on this. So it wasn't annexed in this way. Somebody split this at some point in time. I don't know exactly when.
And I have a deed where my grandmother and grandfather actually bought it, and when they purchased this piece of property along, my lot is 11, and then the 12 is right behind it. When they purchased that lot, it was only 7-point-something odd acres anyway. It wasn't even a full acres. But the lot behind me has a house on it, and it's 2.39 acres. And then there's 2 houses up above on Harrison Boulevard that is, there's several houses there, that's acre lots.
Without investigating each property, I would think that most of them came in annexed in that way. I don't know that for a fact on every one of them. That's probably how most of them came in. They were annexed in that way.
So they were grandfathered in under that date requirement or whatever?
Yes, non-conforming.
And then if it were rezoned, she could do a rezoning request, could she not?
She could do a rezoning request for probably we'd do an RA2, which would be a 2-acre parcel.
So you could roll this application fee into that request?
Could we move the funds over there?
As long as we don't deny it. If we continued a case, we could do that.
Would you be open to that?
Yes.
Okay.
I support that at Planning Commission.
Okay, I'd move to continue for, John, do you think a month? Get this done in a month?
Yes.
Move to continue to the December 6th meeting?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to December 6th. Everybody cast your votes. The item is continued to December 6th. Thank you very much. I forgot to ask if anybody had any. I didn't have any list of anybody other than the applicant here, so nobody else had wanted to speak. Okay, thank you.
Item number 6, case number 14540, request for a variance to the minimum 100-foot separation for a driveway from an arterial street in the C3 Community Commercial District located at 1800 West Memorial Road.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, which is Carvana. This is an application to vary the separation requirement between the center line of our northernmost drive and Memorial. This is an application that Mr. Privet has now been able to hear twice. As a member of the Planning Commission, he heard our special permit application. This is a unique development in that Carvana is a used car operation, and when you buy a car from Carvana, you have two options. They will deliver to your home, or you have the option to go to the facility here and have it dispensed out of a vending machine. And so it's a glass tube that operates as a car vending machine. So it's a fairly neat product. It's the first in market here for Oklahoma City. It's a bit unique here in our situation in that we have a site plan that was approved by the City Council. At the time, it was missed perhaps by the engineer as to the exact separation requirements that existed. It is worth noting that the two drives already exist on site, and we're actually moving the northernmost drive 20 feet further to the south. So I don't know if it's in your staff report or in your documents, but there is a gentleman in Public Works who has sent a letter to Mr. Wilson, or an email to Mr. Wilson, indicating that they have no problems with it, primarily because, again, there are two existing drives, and we're moving further away from Memorial, so we're getting closer to meeting the requirement. Now, why we can't meet the requirement is it's a small site. Again, this goes back to it's a unique operation. This is not a normal car lot where you go and peruse the inventory. You only show up to this site if you have already purchased a car and you're simply getting your car dispensed from the vending machine. And because of that, we don't have a large lot like you might see in a typical car dealership. There are no service features here. This is simply a point of sales where you will get your car. Because of that, it's a small site, and so the circulation pattern is key. If you think about how a car would come to this site, it's going to come on a flatbed or some sort of large automobile. And the only other option would be to get a revocable permit within Indiana Avenue to unload the cars within the public right-of-way. We did attempt to look at that. It wouldn't be our preferred choice, and we were met with disapproval very quickly from Public Works. So this is the only route that we have. We believe that makes it the least minimum to alleviate the hardship. It allows the proper circulation. It allows the traveling public to not be impeded at all along Indiana Avenue, and Public Works has again signed off. Your staff has noted that despite their best efforts, they were unable to identify any unfavorable considerations. So we would ask for your approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So you, based on the statements you've given, you don't think there would be a problem on the coming and going of the traffic getting on the premises?
Correct. The way it is designed now in the application that we've got before you would allow the ability to properly navigate through the site and allow all the circulation necessary to operate here.
And the City Council's already approved SB 510, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any questions, board members?
Is there anyone here that wants to speak on this other than Mr. Box? I'd move approval.
I'd second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you.
Been granted.
Item number 7, case number 14541, request for a variance to permit the use of metal facade on a building in the C3 community commercial district located at 5701 Northwestern Avenue.
Yes, my name is Todd Edmonds. I'm an architect with HSE Architects. I'm here representing our client today, who owns this building that is in question. We are requesting a variance today. This project falls within the C3 Community Commercial District, which in Chapter 59, Section 12100, it does not allow for metal siding in this district. And it's my understanding that is somewhat of an outdated part of the code. It was originally intended to eliminate commercial or industrial pre-engineered metal buildings. In this case, we're simply just asking to extend the existing standing seam metal roof that you can see there and extend it down in a vertical fashion on the side of 2 walls, just to give a new look to this existing structure. There is a residential neighborhood behind this to the west, and most, if not all, of the homes in that area are very contemporary, and they also have metal siding on them. And the owner of this building met with the homeowners association, and they were all in favor of our project.
You changed, you painted it a different color, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's current. Well, it was previously kind of an off-white, creamy color. They currently have gone in and painted it a charcoal gray. It's just kind of a temporary fix until we proceed with this construction.
And it also ties in with the new construction off on the west of the street as well as the class and curve colors?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Yes.
This is another one of those things where it isn't, the ordinance was intended to prohibit something which was more in the name of metal fabrication. I have no objection, I'm just speaking, I have no objection to this. Board members, do you have anything you want to ask before we ask? Are there any objections of anybody out in the audience?
Just my opinion, but it looks a lot better than what it does now. And now it looks a lot better than it did when it was a split T.
Thank you. I agree.
The original split T, the bar.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, all vote, all cast your vote. Motion passed.
Great. Thank you very much.
Item number 8, case number 14542, request for a variance to the minimum number of parking spaces in the C3 Community Commercial District located at 3601 North Portland Avenue.
David Ledbetter, 2612 Drakestone, here on behalf of the applicant. The owner has recently purchased this property. He has intentions to redevelop it for his personal use as a restaurant and a grocery store. Right now, I think we have existing 50 parking spaces plus or minus 1. We are approximately 20 spaces short. And we're requesting a reduction in the required parking.
Well, when it was originally built, it didn't have those requirements, and you're changing the use on the restaurant. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, the only change of use that require additional parking would be the restaurant.
And so you're short 23 spaces, is that correct, with the addition of the restaurant?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're enlarging your...
We're not changing the structure whatsoever. We're renovating the structure, new facade, putting in compliant, accessible parking spaces, a little bit of additional landscaping.
And so there are other businesses going on. Are they still going to be there, or are you going to just have the grocery store? Or
we have one existing tenant on the south corner who has a long-term lease. Intention of the owner is to occupy the rest of the facility personally with the grocery store and restaurant.
Anybody have any questions, board members?
Yeah, I had one question. It seemed like a pretty substantial variance that we would be granting, and before we did that, I wanted to make sure that you looked at alternatives.
There's no option. The Teleflorist are directly to the west, I believe, with their corporate head, not their, the former headquarters of the online plant, or excuse me, florist. And to the south, there's an existing church property.
What about alternatives to, or allowances that you can get, reduction in parking for things like bike racks?
We'd be happy to provide bike racks. Go ahead and do a motorcycle parking up to a certain percentage. You probably get 2 motorcycles per each designated automobile parking space. We'd be quite happy to do that.
Yeah, and so my question was, if that's not already done, that could be done and reduce the percentage of a variance that we would have to grant. And so if you could add...
We'd be happy to provide that
Okay.
maximum allowable, yes.
Okay. Given that, I would continue this to see how far you could reduce that by adding things like bike racks, motorcycle parking. I don't know if landscaping, I know landscaping is a possible way to reduce some of your parking spaces. I don't know if that's possible here, but I just want to make sure all of those efforts are exhausted before we grant a variance. So if you had a month or a month and a half to look into that.
We could do that for the next meeting.
Okay, so December 6th. If the board has any other comments?
I think that's a very good idea. Continue it to relook it, because that's a substantial number of places, and I understand the hardship and the peculiarity that being landlocked and with ordinances and regs existing prior to it, with the change of use in the restaurant. Also, when you do that, are you going to look at the size of your restaurant or anything like that?
Size of the restaurant, we want to limit to 100 seats, which is approximately 2,000 square feet. And the nature of the building with the existing divisions, the 20,075 works perfectly.
And you're going to look at landscaping and all of that other stuff to make sure maybe you can get some bicycle racks and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have them. Okay.
Okay. I'd move to continue application 14542 to the December 6th meeting.
Second.
If we have a motion and a second to continue 14542 to December 6th. Cast your votes. The item is continued.
Item number 9, case number 14543, request for a variance to permit the reconstruction of a non-conforming building in the R1 Single Family Residential District located at 7000 South Post Road.
Hello, my name is Paula Bias. I am here on behalf of my brother, speaking for him, and we are requesting a variance for the property at 7000 South Post Road in Oklahoma City. We are wanting to just basically rebuild the house where it was. The house was, with its usual maintenance and upkeep, the house served its purpose well, but we had some issues and it was falling apart and falling in, and we had to have the house demolished because it was unlivable and not safe for my family or my parents to live there. My brother is their caretaker, and so we're just asking for a variance because this is an it's an R1 AE1, and it's because of Tinker. And basically, where the house was existing is in the AE1. The back side of the property is AE, or is just R1. But we are trying to just put the house back where it was. We're not, it's going to be just a tiny bit bigger, not much. And when Tinker redid their zoning, it caused, they don't want the structures in there because of the flight pattern and stuff. the house is not actually in the flight pattern. It's just the extenuating parts of that zone. And so we're just asking for a variance to put the house back where it was.
You're asking for variance to permit the reconstruction of the non-conforming building, and half of the house is in the AE1 airport, and half is not.
No. My mom's whole house is, the neighbor's house is half in it.
Okay, half the lot is.
Yes, ma'am.
How much of the house will be in the, I'm just curious.
The whole thing. Can you see where the house is?
Yes. Okay.
How did that mansion pop up in the flight path there in the last couple of years? I know they've been building it for a while. I see it all the time.
What, excuse me? Which?
The southeast part of this map. See that mansion that's in? Yeah.
I don't know.
It's more than a mansion, too.
It's like 60,000 square feet, and on the second floor, they have a bowling alley in it. It's a pretty big structure, and the structure that we're wanting to build for my parents is not, it's just a single-story house. They're elderly. We just want to give them a safe place to live for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think that this is a kind of classic example of probably an appropriate use of a variance. Unless, for whatever reason, the intention in drawing this line was eventually some of these houses would fall in disrepair and never get rebuilt or something like that, and to get rid of all this residential. I don't think that that's probably the case. I think it's just kind of a general guide, and then if you happen to fall on the inside of that, you might need to come get a variance, but I think this is an appropriate case for a variance.
I will note that I think one time we had one before where they actually had a letter from Tinker, somebody from Tinker who said, we have no problem. And I would add that I know Tinker has from time to time, but I can't find my copy, has amended that environment zone, which is different from the one we have in our ordinance. Did you check with Tinker at all? I was just asking if you had done that.
No, ma'am. I mean, my mom has owned this property for 39 years. The house has been there for more than 56. But being in the rural area, we never assumed that there was going to be a problem to just rebuild a structure and then we started this process in May, and they told us that he was just wanting to put just a shed out there, and then they said, no, we couldn't do that. Well, then there were issues, and we had to call the insurance, and the insurance ended up deeming the house unlivable and a total loss. And so that's when we kind of went through the process, and when we got ready to go get the permit, that's when we found out about the AE1. They had never told us anything about that in May. They just said that what we were wanting to do before wasn't going to work. Well, then we found out there was other damage and it's going to have to be removed, and so that's when we started the process of rebuilding, and that's when we found out, when we tried to get the permit, that it was classified as an AE1, and that's when we spoke with John.
I agree that this would fit within the perfect application for a variance because of the existence of the other structure, and I would also add that post road, it looks like a little bump or something when you look at the whole Tinker map, is insignificant, and half of it's not even in there. So I think it's very minimal in terms of impact. If the whole thing were in there and it were significantly in there, I would have a different view, I think. And I would recommend getting something from Tinker on that. I do think our map and our ordinance might be a tad bit out of date. So I don't know if anybody's checked with Tinker or anything.
I meant to ask for this, and I didn't. I'd be curious to see that PUD 1184, they're on the west side of Post also.
Yeah, those are pretty new houses within they're pretty recent. Probably in the last 5 to 8 years have those houses been built, because there was nothing on that side of the road except at the very top of Post on 59th Street. All of that was just brush, and there was a little cemetery right there, and then like a mobile home moved in beside the cemetery, and then they started building those houses and stuff. The property across from my mom's belongs to an elderly lady, and they've never done anything with that out there. It's just always been land. But all of these other structures, they're in 1184, those just popped up, like I said, in the last 5 to 8 years. And then the one property, that mansion that you're talking about, he just started building that maybe a year. He's been building it.
A little longer than that, but yeah. You couldn't see it until it started getting bigger.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because his property actually backs up to the back of my mom's property on the south side there. And, but yeah, it's huge.
When you look at that Tinker map, it just looks like a little tiny blip there, and then you look at all the other land around it, even I think one across the street or something, and it's not within it. I don't know how they designed it, how it came to that particular design, but I don't think it's significant in terms of where she's located. So
it's because of the alternate runway, which they don't always use the alternate runway, only whenever the winds are too much for the AWACS planes to land on the main runway, which is north and south. But the alternate runway comes across diagonally, and their flight pattern is not near this. It's further this way to the map of where my parents' house is.
Well, I don't know if anyone else had signed up to speak, but I'm ready to make.
Has anybody signed up to speak on this matter? Any other comments or from the board? I'm sorry.
I'm not signed up to speak. I'm just here on behalf of that homeowner that has that mansion. He just wants to
I don't think we're in order. But okay, you're here for what now? I'm sorry.
on behalf of that homeowner that has that mansion.
Oh, sorry.
I'm an associate
Okay.
of his. My name is Brad Holland. It's a very big project, and he just has a vested interest.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
Brad Holland, 5220 Southeast 78th Street, Oklahoma City.
Interest being, like, he needs the same variance?
He's just interested in, he just wants to be sure that the property that's being built is improving the value of the areas around there, because there are several dilapidated houses, and he just has an interest in, because it's such a large project, he's trying to improve the area and just wants to be sure that the area is continuing to be improved by whatever might be built.
Maybe you can improve 74th Street. It's like
Go ahead.
riding moguls across there.
Yeah, the
74th
house is,
Street.
which this is very funny, because the house that my parents lived in. Yes. Like I said, this house that was previously there that my parents lived in is more than 56 years old. It was just, believe it or not, houses that had just been brought in and put together with some metal siding on it. The house that we're putting in is a pole barn that we are turning into a house. So it's basically a metal house. that is going to be made nice. It's going to have a porch on it, things like that. It is going to be a huge upgrade to that property from what it was. And the houses, there's a house right there that says residential, that little place there. That has been abandoned for probably 20 years. Well, actually longer than 20 years, probably 30 some odd years. It has been abandoned and just sat there. The houses further south there are the same way. Then there's a house that's a little place. It's actually considered a commercial property that those people have put a tiny house on right beside the commercial property. So it's, you know, we've had our place out here. My parents have had this place for 39 years. And this guy coming in, yes, I understand he wants a nice place, but most of those houses are going to stay there. I mean, we had issues and we had to tear it down, and we're trying to make it better. I mean, we could have tried to fix an old dilapidated house up and just left it there, but that's not what we're doing.
That's, what's before us is the variance for the reconstruction, dealing with the pertinent issue of the AE1 airport environs. And
yes.
We're not into looking into all the design and everything, sir, on this, but do you have any other comments?
Well, this, before you go, these houses here to the south, or there's at least one house that's abandoned, is that on their land, your family land, or is that someone else's land?
No, that's, I don't know who, I think there's some renters down there. There's some people that's lived there for a long time. I haven't lived with my mom for more than 35 years. I mean, so I don't know who lives there and who doesn't anymore. I live in Chandler, and so I just know whenever I go there and see the buildings being built and the structures and stuff, but those places have been there for a very long time. These on this side are brand new. And I don't know. The gentleman next door where it runs through the middle of his house, that's Bill, and he's lived there for a very long time. The people behind us in the PUD 28, they've lived there for a very long time. They're...
Okay, yeah, I'm just making sure we don't have kind of a cascade of variances for family property.
No. There's just that little property there is all that.
Okay. And then, sir, did you have any other comments or anything? No. Okay. I understand you're just have an interest in seeing what's being built there.
Yeah, that's what we have, is an interest in what's being built. Obviously, there's several dilapidated buildings, and we just wanted to be sure that whatever is going to be built is going to continue to improve the value of that area.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd move to approve the application, case number 14544, for the reasons that it meets the statutory requirements for a variance.
I'd second it.
It will be a 10-day period in case somebody wants to appeal this decision. Item number 10, case number 14544, application for a special exception to allow a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship in the AA Agricultural District located at 8000 North Richland Road.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Lawson. I live over in Yukon. We're just right on the edge of Oklahoma City limits. I'm here with my husband, Jay. We are asking for a special exemption for 3 years to allow us to place a mobile home on our property. We are zoned AA, which we have 5 acres, a little smidge over 5 acres, and we can only have one residence on the property. I'm asking for a medical hardship because I have a father who will be 80 soon and lives in Ada, and we would love to be able to place a small mobile home at the back of our property to allow him to live there so that I can care for him. I'm an only child. My mother passed away a little over a year ago, and he resides by himself, and it would just be a great blessing to have him close and be able to take care of him.
John, everything's been properly submitted for review for the purposes of the special exception, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And this would be for 3 years, which you understand at the end of 3 years, it ends, and
Yes,
the
ma'am.
mobile home would have to be removed.
Yes, ma'am. Or I could reapply, is my understanding.
That's correct.
Well, I mean, or reapply, I'm
Right,
sorry.
right, if necessary, yes.
Board members, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the special exception for a period of 3 years. Cast your votes, please. The special exception was granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are at the end of end of the other 2 items for been continued, and we have nothing else other than if you have any reports or board members want to make any comments. We have no citizens out there, so we have nothing to be heard. And I did have a coughing attack. I'm very proud of myself. So anything to add? Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. And I will add, next time, John's going to have the, on the docket to approve our next year's meeting dates. Thank you.